All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this special meeting of TMWA, Truckee Meadows Water Authority. We're here in the Sparks Council Chambers, and it is Thursday, May 22nd at 10 a.m. And the first item on the agenda is to call the roll. So I'll ask our clerk to do that, please. And I should have done this, too.
Now we're official.
Now we're official.
One second, I'm going to post Councilmember Vanderwell.
Okay.
Is here virtually.
Okay.
Anderson?
Here.
Andriola?
Present.
Moore?
Here.
Hill?
Here.
Martinez?
Here.
Taylor? Here. Vanderwell?
I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Zimmerman?
Here.
Adelia? We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. And we are now going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask Mr. Anderson to lead us.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Nice job, Speedy Demon there. But, okay, next item up is public comment. And anyone wishing to make public comment, either in the room or online, please let us know. Let me ask our attorney, do you need to read any disclosure? We do that at some meetings. Okay, well, the public comment's limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker. Usually we read or let people know if they're on Zoom, how to join, but I don't have that information in front of me. So I have one public comment right now, which is Tammy Holt-Still. You want to come up?
Okie doke. Ready? Hi, I'm Tammy Holt-Still for the record. Up on the screen, it will show that there is a pamphlet that has been received by everybody at some point. I did a test of Swan Lake where RTC plans on putting their new aligned Lemon Drive. You will find how disastrous Swan Lake Health is. The reason I am bringing this to this board again is because of the fact that it is only 20 to 50 feet above your aquifer, our drinking water. This is imperative that you guys pay attention and that you understand how dangerous this is. This is affluent. I have been talking about this since 2017. Affluent does not belong in a public playa. I have taken this information to Congressman Amodei. I have been told by the city of Reno and Washoe County staff that I'm a crazy lady. Well, in DC, they heard me. They understood I was not crazy. I have been promised a meeting, it hasn't happened yet, with heads of state regarding this situation. We have a disaster in the making, and it needs to change. And it needs to start with all of you paying attention. I know some of you are on the RTC board also. You need to start saying, whoa, why are you wasting money on something that is not going to be proper? Because it's not proper. It's going to cause problems down the road. Putting affluent in a public playa to change or take a shortcut is not proper. Flooding residents and making them sick is not proper. I found out through an unknown source that the hay made somebody sick when you were trying to dewater Swan Lake. That made another resident sick, and that TMWA settled with them because of how sick her horses got, how sick her family got. And there was a settlement out there. And she doesn't talk to me anymore, and I did not know why she didn't talk to me anymore until I found out through somebody else that there was a settlement that was done for her. So, you guys know there's a danger out there. And it's time for you to stop taking shortcuts, stop destroying our valleys, stop going for greed, and stop doing things the wrong way and start doing things the right way. And start asking for help. Congressman Amadei wants to help. He has said that time and time again, but you guys are ignoring me, you are ignoring the facts, and you are ignoring everything that is out there. I am not crazy, and I'll take it, but you guys are the crazy ones if you want to ignore it and get sued in the long run. You've already been sued once by the city of Reno, or city of Reno was sued once by residents and lost. How many
Your
more
3 minutes
times
is
does
up.
this stuff have to go?
I was just going to say, thank you for being here, Ms. Holtstill. And I think one of the items on our agenda today may address some of your concerns, not all. Are there any other public comments? Madam Clerk? Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Madam Clerk, are there any other public comment? No. Okay, thank you. Well, we'll close out public comment and go to possible board comments or acknowledgements, and I have one today. I wanted to acknowledge the whole TMWA staff, which a huge amount of them were out at Smart About Water Day. I think many of us had an opportunity to visit there, and I see a lot of heads shaking. So almost the whole board had a chance to go out there, and it was truly impressive. Both the turnout from the public, but really importantly, at all the booths, the professionals that I had a chance to talk to, and the professionals from other organizations that participated, all of that was quite notable. And I didn't know if any other board members wanted to make a comment, but I just wanted to say, kudos and atta girl and atta boy for being there and doing what you do. Ms. Hill.
I also attended, and it was a great event. There were so many family-friendly activities, so I do commend the team. Thank you for getting out there and being part of the community, and I think that TMWA has done a really great job of doing that. And I also have a kudos for Mr. Will Raymond, who has been accommodating a lot of public tours at our facilities, and a constituent reached out to me to tell me how wonderful you are. And it's so great to hear how great our public servants are, and I think that they're not appreciated enough in the public. So thank you for your service to TMWA and for accommodating these public tours.
Yeah. Anyone else? Oh, Ms. Andriola.
I'll just echo the comments. I too was at that event, and it was great. And I think that it's really not fair in some ways, because the community itself probably all needs to know the great work that you do, but at least this event helped to educate and expose information and just the interest and the families. It was a very family-oriented event, and I think that was really great too. So thank you for all your hard work. And it was a nice day on top of everything else, so weather was favorable as well. So thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll keep it short. Thank you. You guys did an amazing job. So appreciate it. I wish we could do it more often, but I know it was a lot of work for y'all.
Robert even asked me to use some of my pictures, so that was cool too. Anyone else? Everyone? Yeah, Mr. Martinez.
Thanks so much. I also just want to add on to the kudos and say thank you all for putting on such a great event. I know my daughters really enjoyed it, really enjoyed getting to meet you all and learn about your professional trajectory and how you got into your careers. The models were awesome, and I also want to give kudos to Danny and Will for the tour of Chalk Bluff and showing me around that facility. So we see these things on paper and we see diagrams, but being there in person obviously gives me a greater understanding of the depth of what you all do. So appreciative of your work.
That's awesome. And didn't they do a scavenger hunt too, I thought?
Yeah, they did. They had a little scavenger hunt for the kids to complete with different questions and items for them to learn. I also give kudos for the Spanish-speaking folks that were there too, because I did see some community members there or hear them speaking in Spanish.
Yeah.
So it was awesome.
All right, fantastic. So you hit it out of the park. Looking forward to next year's already. So thank you. All right, so then we're going to move on to approval of the agenda. I'm looking for a motion.
Move to approve?
Chair Doer,
Oh,
just
yeah.
one
oh,
comment
you have
about,
an amendment to the?
yeah, I think agenda item 9 can wait until June, so push that
Okay.
out. I think we have several board members going to a function that need to leave by 11. And so
Right, okay.
that's not
Yeah.
necessary, and that'll help us get there.
Okay, all right, thank you. So with the removal of item 9, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve as amended.
I'll second.
All right, so motion from Mr. Anderson, second from Ms. Andriola. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. And we're going to move on to approval of the minutes of April 16, 2025. And again, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Ms. Andriola, second from Ms. Hill. I just wanted to check, any changes or amendments to the minutes? Anyone? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. And now we're moving on to one of our two meaty items today, item 7. And this is our public hearing on adoption of the budget. Do we need to open the public hearing in some way? Excuse me? Okay, before and after. All right. Well, I'm hereby opening, maybe I have to do this, I'm not sure. Opening the public hearing on adoption of the budget. And first, I'd like to call for public comment. Anyone have a comment on the budget, proposed budget? We haven't approved it yet. Okay, we've had a lot of workshops. But, all right, we'll see none. Over to you, Mr. Bowman. And it looked like another person, David Deagle. You're here too. Okay. Oh, you're hanging back in the audience. Okay. Okay, over to you, Mr. Bowman.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the board, good morning. Matt Bowman, TMWA CFO for the record. David Deagle's listed on the staff report as well. He plays a huge role in the capital improvement plan. And so he's here to answer questions on anything in there. And I hope you have seen or you have in your possession our book. So we do this every year, lots of pretty pictures and really useful information. So Dave's here to answer any questions you have on that front. So we'll get started. You should have a staff report and again, the capital improvement plan. This is the final process for our fiscal 26 and CIP budget season. And so this would be, we're asking for approval of the final budget, would get filed with the state following that. So you'll recall in March, we were here talking about this budget in a lot of detail, presentation, lots of numbers. And so what we typically do then for this final budget is to talk about anything that changed since that point. So the board did approve that budget in March. One item that was added to that motion was for TMWA staff to consider funding for a Portland Lou style restroom. And so we've achieved that within this final budget. So we did make a change. That's the one change on the operating side. We allocated 2 of our headcount additions that we had asked for, which were okay, deferring to basically fund $250,000 additional to the Truckee River Fund for the purpose and the intent of a Portland Lou style restroom. And that would be, I believe the request is likely to come through Washoe County for Mayberry Park restroom. And so we've basically allocated from staff costs to services and supplies. And you'll see that in the attachments to this budget. And that's the one change on the operating budget that we made. So again, not an increase, not an add to the total, but an allocation that's doable for staff.
Okay. Well, I have a question about that. So were those in toto the 2, or were there more staff you were planning to hire?
No, we were planning to hire 14 additional staff.
Okay.
So that number is now 12 because we've deferred 2 and
Okay.
we're okay to do that.
That's what I wanted to make sure. And then this is different because it's a one-shot, and so in contrast to this recurring
Yes.
item.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And right now, you probably plan to bring those back sometime.
Yeah,
next
they
year or
do.
something.
We've effectively deferred them 12 months. They're going to remain in kind of our long-range forecast, our funding plan. And then that's how we do headcount is we don't just plan a year at a time. We look at 5 years minimum and say, what do we think we need staffing wise over 5 years? And we just continue to roll that forward, sort of take a snapshot of the budget, say this is what's coming next year, but then we're always looking over the next 5 years.
And do you want to just tell us, and I don't know, I don't think you have this on here, But the 12 now that you would be hiring, do you want to tell us what areas they would be working in?
Yes, yeah. And I'm going to refer back to the staff report from the tentative budget. But yeah, it's not in this one. You're right. And so what we have is we're going to have 6 positions between human resources, administration, and security. And then we have another 6 positions sort of on the operations side, distribution, and engineering as well. So those are the allocations of those 6 positions. And the 2 that we deferred was one out of, in technology, and the 2 was 1 out of technology, basically an MIS analyst, which is a business analyst, and then a position out of our distribution side as well.
And then Matt, what is driving the need for these positions? I mean, is it growth in the agency? I mean, I understand on the HR side, but tell us about the operations side.
Sure, yeah. It's well, on the operations side, it's really looking at what we need to get done, we think, to continue to serve. And so one of the larger additions is another heavy crew. And so that's 4 positions right there. And that's Ryan Dixon, our distribution director up there. It's under him. And it's basically another crew to go out and resolve problems that are occurring, whether it's leaks or other things. And so that's with expanding service territory. That's a need, aging infrastructure, that kind of thing.
Do we have a metric on how many maybe connections we've added over last year to this year?
Yeah, so it's roughly, you could think about 1.5% or about 2,000 connections in each year. That's sort of been our growth and also what we project as growth going forward.
Okay. I think that's important to keep a mind or an eye on because obviously the growth is driven by TMWA itself is growing with these extra connections. Therefore, the revenue is growing. Therefore, demand too to maintain what we're adding. So, and then is the new truck in here as well
Yes.
for the team?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That'll be all our vehicle budget is included in the CIP, and that's a big part of it.
Yes, please. Of course.
While we're talking about personnel, I just was curious, out of those 2 deferred positions, what will the impact be or the difference that it's going to make to TMWA employees as a result of that deferral?
Yeah, so I'll start on the distribution side. We've been, you've heard us talk about our AMI project where we're deploying AMI meters into the service territory that can be read remotely. We're nearly done with that project. I think we only have 9,000 meters left to go. And so what that allows us to do is shift some of the effort from driving and reading those meters with a vehicle to other focused activities. And so part of the shift is that we don't think one position that was related to the reading of the meters is going to be needed, and it'll likely be needed elsewhere, but we're deferring that. It's less of an immediate need, so we're pushing that out. The other position on the technology side is we have a group of staff, and they're MIS analysts, and they're often referred to as business analysts or sort of like the technology project managers. They help us move forward with certain technology, software, usually initiatives across the organization. So the deferral of that position, it basically says that we can't take on as much as we maybe want to take on from a technology standpoint. So there's and that's a question we always ask ourselves anyway, is we have everybody wants to do stuff. Everybody has software, they have projects that they want to move forward, but we can't do it all at once. We've got to pace that out financially and staff wise. And so the deferral of that position, it sort of just it forces us to look at our projects and prioritize. We have total staff in that department is, I think we're at 5. And so deferring one, it's not like we have one and we were going to add another one so that we can defer that or defer a couple of projects. We have a big project that's in here. It's our HR payroll project that's moving forward. That's going to take a bunch of that staff time. And so there's a little bit of unknown there. And so this position was to sort of help with that and other things. And so it just forces us to prioritize in what we move forward with.
Okay. Thank you very much for the explanation.
Other comments and questions? Did you have more on a presentation? I feel like I interrupted you, but
that's the bulk of it. The last thing I was going to mention, I guess I'll just say 2 things. On the CIP side, there was no change in total. We did some ups and downs among projects, but we didn't change the total of the CIP between tentative and today. And then the last thing I want to touch on is just kind of give you a glimpse into the next few months for us. We're going to be working leading up to the strategic planning meeting in October on our funding plan. In this budget, we have a 3.5% rate increase that's assumed for fiscal 2026. Next May, we'll be talking about rates in the funding plan discussion at the October meeting. And part of that discussion, we will look at, is that 3.5% going to be adequate based on some of the cost increases? And then really what we've seen, and we talked about at the tentative budget presentation, is our cash balance. We're projecting to be only about $5 million above our minimum at the end of fiscal 26. And so that's pretty close and maybe a little too close for comfort. So we are going to look at rates, again, plan for 3.5%, but we're going to evaluate whether that's adequate at the funding.
When you say 3.5% above minimum, do you mean above like the ending fund balance, or what do you mean?
Yeah, so
or is that the ending fund balance? I mean,
It's for us, we don't call it an ending fund balance. It's really cash in the bank, and we have
Okay.
some required
Right.
reserves for our cash, restricted cash, and then a level of unrestricted cash on top of that is to be used for whatever might come up. And there's a calculation.
contingency or
Yeah, it's
rainy day
basically
fund or
contingency.
dry day fund?
Yep. And that's a healthy amount. It's well over $100 million of unrestricted cash. And so we look at everything in aggregate, where we're going to end the year based on revenue coming in, and then expenses going out the door, and where are we going to end? And we're projected to be about $5 million above the total required cash, which in total between restricted and unrestricted, about $170 million. So $5 million above that is a pretty small percentage. And so that's what we're looking at. Is that sustainable? That's where our long-range funding, long-range forecasting and planning is helpful, because we don't want to be overly reactive to what we think is going to happen 1 year from today, but we want to set a trajectory that allows us to be responsible over the next 5 years financially. And so that's where the next couple months we'll be coming back and forth, what the plan looks like. What do we set in motion today to accomplish what 5 years?
Got it. Anyone, other questions, comments, thoughts, inquiry? Yes, Ms. Hill.
I just really appreciate the compromise that you and the team came up with, and I appreciate the compromise that you and the team came up with, so thank you very much.
Anyone else? Yeah, I'm going to put in some kudos too. Getting in these Portland loos, or whatever we want to call them, but enabling people to go to the bathroom along our primary river corridor helps in several different ways. I mean, certainly it helps provide a needed amenity to our community, but importantly for TMWA, obviously it helps get the poop and the pee out of the river and into proper receptacle. And that's something we got to think about all the time. You know, we just really do. And I don't mind calling it what it is, because that is what it is. And unfortunately, there's too much of that goes on along the river. So, and then we just have to treat it at Chalk Bluff or wherever. And, you know, it just increases our costs. So this is one of those preventative things that helps us not have back-end costs, so to speak. And so, any other comments? Okay, well, thank you very much for the presentation, and we'll look forward to those updates. I know we never want to talk about rate increases, and also when we're talking about rate increases, just keep this in mind too. We're adding 12 positions. Is that sustainable? You know, we found out at all of our home bodies, no. So we, you know, over at Reno, we're holding 20 or 25 people frozen. I'm sure they're doing some of it at the other jurisdictions. Some are cutting positions. Some are increasing other fees just to keep some of the positions. So we're all over here experiencing a lot of hard times at our home organizations. And of course, personnel is one of the biggest costs. Maybe not as big for TMWA because you have all of this treatment process and equipment and all of that. But over at our home jurisdictions, it's typically 85% personnel. And so it hits us hard. It makes us very much focused on that issue. So we don't want to be in a situation here at TMWA, if revenues aren't coming in, but we're not feeling comfortable with the rate increase, having to hold positions vacant. Similarly at TMWA, should that happen. When those positions were added to do important jobs, just like here, we didn't say, well, in 2 years, we'll have to put a hold on them, you know, or something else. to make, it's very hard to predict nationally, right, what's happening. The cost of materials, which we have all experienced. Projects are coming in 25, 30, 50% even over budget. And between concrete, steel, and all the things that TMWA needs. So as those costs go high, and then, we're just going to have to just take a careful look when it comes to raising rates also. Because I'll just share, we're looking at 16% rate increase in sewer at Reno over a 2-year period. You just went to 18% for a franchise fee to just afford employees. I think you're looking at your fees too. And so point being, we're all here together and we are your board. And so it's all in our mind. So in other words, let me just pull that together. The impact on the customers, the consumers, the residents, they're having to get hit from all sides from us, less service, more money costs or higher costs. And we just wonder how much can they handle, in addition to the national economy. So, okay, something we all just got to be cognizant of. All right. Okay, well, with that, I am wanting to take a final public comment on the budget. Okay. Anyone online? Oh, before the comment? Oh, all right. But before we vote, you want a motion, but before we vote?
Way as agenda would be to take action on the item and then have,
Oh, okay.
it's up to you.
Okay, well, I'll just call public comment first. I don't think there is any more. Okay. All right, so I'm looking for a motion on the budget.
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the final budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026, and capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2026 through 2030.
All right, thank you.
Second.
And we have second. All right, so we have a motion from Ms. Andriola, second from Mr. Martinez. Any final comments on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. All right, thank you, Ms. Vanderwell. Motion passes unanimously. Good job. We got there.
Yeah.
It's a whole bunch of day today of getting there. You are the third budget most of us have weighed in on today. All right, good job. So we're going to close the public hearing. Do that. And we're going to move on to item 8, which is our other big item for today. Still Matt Bowman.
Yes, still me. Okay, hello again. Matt Bowman, TMWA CFO for the record. This item is, it's a continuation of something that was started a year ago with this board approving a resolution to indicate the intent to borrow, at that point, up to $55 million of SRF funds at 1% to fund TMWA's portion of the American Flat project. Just a reminder, that project is moving into construction under an ILA with City of Reno, where City of Reno is funding 70%, funding 30%. This is the next step in that process. This is a resolution to authorize either the general manager or myself, the CFO, to sign an agreement for that SRF funding. There has been a $9 million total increase in the funding request since a year ago under that SRF loan. But it lists out actually 3 different agreements. One is for the 1% loan itself. The other is principal forgiveness for $6 million and $50,000 principal as well. And so those are 3 separate agreements. You can read the resolution. It's pretty lengthy. We have Ryan Henry from Taft, our bond counsel, here to answer any questions on the resolution itself. I do believe Reno approved on their side an ordinance yesterday at the board meeting for the same thing. So this is not authorization to move forward with the project at this point. We're very close to 90% design, but we're not here asking for the board to authorize the project to move forward, but to get the funding in place.
All right, thank you. Yeah, what a team effort this has been, with this entire board, which extends to all of our jurisdictions as well as Reno. Yesterday, we did in fact approve that. And I just want to comment, how amazing is it that we have access to the state revolving fund? I mean, for the 1% rate,
Yep.
The forgiveness of $6 million, I think you mentioned. I mean, it's remarkable that we have it. It's remarkable we still have it because it is federally funded, as to my knowledge, and that those funds are still there. So I think we get them while we can. in other words. So it's truly amazing. Let me ask the board, any comments, questions, thoughts on this one? Yeah, anything? Nothing? Yeah, please, Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make a comment. I made the same comment to our team at the City of Reno, and I think you made the clarification that this doesn't necessarily mean that we're spending the money and there's no penalty if the project doesn't go forward, and I think it's a great project, and I'm very supportive. At the City of Reno, we're watching very closely to make sure that we get the grant funds for it, and that's going to be a big, so very supportive of this, but I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments? All right, seeing none, I'm looking for a motion on item 8.
Go ahead, Vice Chair.
We're having an arm wrestle up here.
Move to adopt resolution number 335.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion from Mr. Anderson, second from Ms. Hill. Any final thoughts or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Exciting day here at TMWA, just as it was yesterday at Reno. We're off and running to get our hands on the money, get some commitments on the funding. Got to do that before we do the next thing. So thank you, Matt, for doing all the back work that's involved here. I mean, it is quite involved.
Yeah.
It doesn't just, here's the money, there's a lot of work you have to do. So thanks again.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to move on. We've pulled item 9 off the agenda. So we'll be moving on to item 10, which is the Q3 year-to-date financial reports.
All right, thank you.
It's all about the money today.
Yeah, and
Okay.
that's fine.
All right.
It makes me happy. Okay, so again, Matt Bowman, TMWA CFO for the record. This is your standard quarterly financial update. This is through 3 quarters of the fiscal year, so it's through March 31st, 2025. 1 quarter left. We're in the 4th quarter. Good news is we're not looking at any last-minute budget augmentations this year. Things are playing out as we expected. In the case we were going to be overspent on operating expenses or something like that, we'd be asking for a budget augmentation, but there's no risk of that through 3 quarters certainly, and so far through today. I just want to point out a couple of things and then take questions on anything in here. On page 2 is our operating revenues. We pay attention to this too because, as you know, and as we talk about a lot, the weather can have a pretty significant effect on the cash coming in. And so we look at water sales, which is the majority of our operating revenue. That's the top line in that table, and you can see through 3 quarters we were within 1%, about 1% under, which is
That's
good.
where we want to be.
Where we want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did look. We've had some rain, so I was trying to. It's kind of fun to speculate where we might end the year with the rain that we've had. I think in April we were a little bit above average in total rainfall, so I expect we might see maybe we'll end the year 2% lower on revenue, something to that effect, which is not bad, and that's not impactful, I would say. So things are looking good on that front as far as for TMWA financially. The next page I'll touch on, and that'll be the last thing to talk about. Operating expenses, you can see that top table, we're 6% lower than budget, which is a good place to be, and sort of no surprises, and our budget was adequate to cover what we needed. So again, no augmentations forthcoming. 4th quarter so far is stacking up to be pretty normal, and that's pretty much it, but I'll take any questions that you have.
Yeah.
There's obviously more information in here.
Yeah, let's open the floor. Mr. Anderson?
I was just curious on the service and supplies. Was that like a purposeful pullback from what normally is being spent?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's kind of a lot in there. One is that when we set our budget, just like the budget that the board approved, we don't want to overspend that during the year. And so we are a little bit conservative with how we set that budget, because if we are going to overspend, we'll be back for an augmentation. So there's a little bit of conservatism built in there. I think, typically I'd like to be anywhere between 5 and 8% underspent. So if you look at this through 3 quarters, we're actually 12%
Right.
lower here. And there's a lot going on and this is kind of the second part to that, is we've been talking a lot about and paying a lot of attention to how we're spending money and just trying to be as efficient as we can without sacrificing what we're doing. And part of that comes into negotiating contracts, just really trying to be strategic in the work that we are doing. And then there's some things that we can't control as much, like electric power and chemical costs. Those have been favorable compared to budget. I think we're looking a little more bad scenarios when doing the fiscal 26 budget on the electric power and water treatment chemical side. And we've saw some NV Energy pass through rate adjustments in our favor with their deferred accounting adjustments. They are going to have rate case adjustments that will be going the other way this year, but we have some savings in there. So those are the big things. So some of it, yes, Member Anderson is intentional in that we are talking more and more, just like all of your jurisdictions are, as we've got to pay very, very close attention to the money going out the door, being strategic, prioritizing what needs to be done, being as efficient as we can, creative. I think that's led to some savings. But then also we had some benefit that's a little more out of our control, like price stuff. So
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I appreciate that conservatism as far as the last thing we want to do is find out kind of like what we were talking about in
Yeah.
our jurisdictions where we're upside down.
yeah.
So I appreciate where you guys are going with this, all the work that the team in general has done. So well done. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Yeah, Mr. Martinez.
Thanks so much. Just a quick question on the revenue side. In your paragraph, you mentioned new business kind of increasing the other operating sales, but you didn't really talk about the hydroelectric sales. I'm just curious why that was so much higher than what was budgeted.
Yeah, so hydroelectric sales, for one, that's the generation of our 3 hydroelectric facilities along the river, and so we're selling that power to NV Energy under a power purchase agreement, and so that's what's reflected in that line. It's a direct reflection of the amount of energy that those plants produce, and what we've seen is a couple of things, and one is that the hydro operations team has done a fantastic job keeping those plants up and running. They're 100-year-old facilities. So
How many old?
100.
100.
It's a task in and of itself to
You sort
keep
of
them
swallowed that
up
one.
and running. Yes. And
Okay.
so, we've got Ryan Dixon and Ryan Dixon, Jason Barnes in the audience, and their teams do a fantastic job. The other thing that we pivoted on, and again, this was their teams making the decision, is that we saw that we were going to have really good river flows throughout the year, and we had some maintenance that was planned on those facilities where you have to take them down. You obviously don't generate revenue. You do the work, get them back up. And so we thought strategically, we don't have to do that maintenance this year. We don't think there's risk of failure or anything like that. So let's defer that maintenance and maybe to a window when river flows are going to be lower, where maybe we wouldn't be able to generate anyways, and then do the maintenance there. And so there's a lot of strategic planning that goes into that. And that's part of why our budget was a little lower, was because we had a little more maintenance plan that we said, we don't need to do that maintenance. Let's run them and generate.
Well, kudos to you. I just wanted to make sure we got that up on the record and make sure we captured it. Thank you.
Make hay while the sun shines, right? Let me ask you about this. You have another plant in the works? Is
Yeah.
that true? Yeah.
Mhm, we do. And that's our Ore Ditch facility. So that is right below the Chalk Bluff Water Treatment Plant. And that one's a little different because it's behind the meter, meaning that facility will generate power for the Chalk Bluff Water Treatment Plant.
Self-supply.
Yeah, in the months when we don't need max capacity at the plant. And that's because there's going to be the generation will come off of the Highland Ditch, which will be diverted down through the existing piping, basically, and turn a turbine at the bottom of the hill as it returns to the river, generating power between November and April of each year. So that project's nearing completion. It's another hydro, a little different though, again, because it's behind the meter, not on a power purchase agreement like the other.
Plus, I mean, you're not, it sounds like not generating off the river. You're generating off this internal piping system.
It's off of the Highland Ditch, which
Right.
ultimately is a diversion off the river.
Right.
But yeah, it's a little bit different of a
Yeah.
program.
And then I wanted to ask, is the maintenance that you got to defer, can that just be done in the summer when the water's low, or is this take like 6 months or something?
Yeah, I think the downtime we had scheduled were in a matter of a month or two, if I remember correctly, for some of that Verdi maintenance that we were going to do. And yeah, it would be done. It would be done when usually in the fall.
Or the lowest.
So the lowest river flows.
Yeah.
And there's a point when we'll have to do it. And so regardless of what the river flows are, we'll have to do it. We won't want to defer it any longer.
All right. Okay, more questions, Ms. Taylor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Obviously, it looks like, Q3, we have another quarter to go. Revenue's up, but our expenses are also up. Overall, we have a favorable net position. I think, looking forward, when do we start looking at the rate increases? Did I hear you say October?
Yeah.
Okay, and what does that number look like, or is it too early to tell?
It's a little too early to tell. And that's why once the cadence is once we finish this budget, then we take all the updated information that we know after going through this process, and we start to model it long term and say, where's our cash balance? Where's our debt service coverage? What do we think our revenue is going to be? What's our spending needs? And then how do we feel about that? What levers do we have? One being rates that we can look at. 3.5 is what we are planning. That was approved as part of our rate plan a few years ago. We approved a 3.5% in fiscal 26. I expect that we may need a little more than that.
Okay.
That's what I'll say. Again, I don't want to say more than that because we got to run the numbers, and it's not going to be a lot more than that. I don't think anybody will be shocked.
Well, it's nice to see a budget with a favorable net position, so thank you. Good work.
Yeah.
Anything else from anyone? Yep, Mr. Anderson?
Just one last. We touched on it already, but to come in at a 1% variance on budget is amazing. I wish in my business I could be that accurate, so good job.
Yeah, and I give some kudos to Professor Stoddard, Sean Stoddard,
Yep.
Who does our revenue forecasting and a lot of detailed 130,000 accounts. There's a lot of transactions to look at and model and come up with a revenue forecast. And then we go back and forth. Yeah, it's too low. And he's like, that's what it's going to be. And we say, okay. And we land on a number. So that's great. If we can be within 1% on revenue every year, it makes planning a lot easier.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, it really is incredible. When I was running budgets like this, I would just hope I'd come within about 5%. Was a good number, and I felt really, really proud. 1% is almost getting a little scary. I mean, in terms of could go the other way.
Yeah.
But really remarkable performance. So thank you, Sean, too. All right, any more comments, thoughts? All right, seeing none, let me just get my agenda back here. We're going to close out this item, I think. Sorry, got my wrong sheet here. Too much going on. All right, so bottom line, that was a informational. I mean, you didn't need any action this time because we're not making any adjustments or amendments. So we'll close out 10 and move to our final item, technical item, which is the legislative report.
Good morning, everybody. Dan Newbell, staff attorney at TMWA for the record, here to give an update on the 2025 legislative session. TMWA is currently tracking 64 bills at the session. Some of those are starting to fall off with the recent deadlines that we've come up against. The most recent being last Friday, which was for bills to make it out of second committee for the second house. There's going to be another deadline this Friday, which is to make it out of the second house. And then there'll be a new deadline for bills that have been exempted because they have fiscal notes on them. I believe that's for May 28th, where there has to be some kind of action on those. So for the bills that do not have fiscal notes, we have a pretty good idea of where they're going now, because if they've made it out of second committee, then there's a very good chance that they're going to get passage within the second house. To give you an update on the ones that we've been tracking along with and you all have taken action on, For AB 104, which is what we've called the omnibus bill, it has our language relating to direct potable reuse and development of regulations. That bill has passed the Assembly Committee of Natural Resources unanimously. And so that one is well on its way to passage by the Greater House, hopefully by this Friday. For the next one that we have, SB 276, that was the one where we were initially opposed to it because of some of the cumbersome language regarding notifications in the event of a spill. We worked with the sponsors to make some changes to that, and after those amendments were made, we received direction from you all to support that bill. That bill is also well on its way. It received unanimous passage within the Assembly Committee. And so now it will go to the Greater Assembly for a vote and for passage. And, just so you know, once bills receive passage from both houses, basically we're going to be looking for a veto for any bills. And we'll just keep our eyes out at that point to see what bills ultimately make it and which ones get vetoed. We have next up AB 419. That is the only bill on this list that we have opposed. We submitted a letter stating our opposition. That was the one to make significant changes to DWR, the Division of Water Resources, the State Engineer's Office, relating to a lot of pre-application processes, relating to application of the APA to their regulation-making process. That bill is currently within the Ways and Means Committee because of the very significant fiscal note that we've talked about, which is $25 million, more than double their current budget for the biennium. So that bill is being worked on within Ways and Means. Leo Drozdov, our government affairs consultant, has heard that there's going to be a significant amendment offered potentially. We don't really know what that's going to hold. But from our expectation, a lot of the concerns that we've had with this bill seem unlikely to move forward this session. So it's also something that might get worked on in between, this session and the next one. And so we'll continue to work with the sponsors of that bill if there's any action in between legislative sessions regarding some of those concerns. The last one we have is new to the board. It was discussed at the legislative subcommittee last Friday. This one is AB 392. It's a bill that requires that counties not precondition interlocal agreements with a tribe to include waiver of sovereign immunity. And essentially, sovereign immunity is what prevents a tribe or other governmental entity from being sued in court. And so there was concern on SNWA's part, and we shared it, that if that is applied to a water utility, part of serving water to anyone is essentially being able to enforce the agreement. And so we spoke with the bill sponsors, our legislative consultant did, Leo Drozdov, and worked with SNWA. All the parties agreed that this really wasn't meant to apply to water utilities. And so the subcommittee this past Friday supported an amendment to the bill that would exempt water utilities and water authorities from being part of the requirements of this bill. That amendment was passed already. And so within our list, we have this bill as support with amendment. That amendment has already been passed. If you all could do a motion that would basically support that position, I think that would be best just for the record, though that amendment has already been completed.
Yeah.
And so the concern with that bill is gone. Happy to take any questions that you all have.
I just have one on the second to last one that you just discussed. I don't know the bill number.
419?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to make sure I understood. Could you just summarize that again at the end?
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially right now it's stuck in Ways and Means Committee because of that huge fiscal note.
Right.
It seems
and what was the
unlikely.
huge fiscal note?
$25 million
Holy cow.
because of the major changes that would be required. They said that DWR said that they would have to add
This is
basically
the
double staff.
administrative, adding Administrative Procedure Act to everything.
Amongst other things, yeah. It would also require
Have a report, I think.
pre-application meetings. There'd be
Right.
a report to the legislature, which we wouldn't have an issue with that portion of it. There's also changes for the judicial review standard for decisions by the state engineer within that bill, which is something we had a problem with.
What is that, though?
So it would add, essentially, it's a stare decisis, if you remember us talking about that from the last time, where one state engineer, a new state engineer, would have to follow decisions very rigidly of a previous state engineer. And so essentially, the only time you really see that is like the U.S. Supreme Court. There's a concept of stare decisis, which usually they follow. Sometimes they change, based on new interpretations of law. And so our concern is that we want the state engineer to follow the law as written. If there was a previous erroneous decision made, then in some cases that might mean you need to make a different decision here. And so that was one of the concerns that we had with this bill as well. But I think the last part that you're asking about with the update I gave was essentially what the intel that we're getting regarding this bill is. It seems unlikely that it's going to pass. It's going to make it out of Ways and Means. It is possible that in between this session and the next session in 2 years, there might be more dialogue about that. And we know the sponsors of the bill, the people that are pushing this bill. And so we'll continue to have a dialogue about the shared goals that we have, while also letting them know, which they already do, about the concerns we have with what they've tried to implement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be quite a big change, and the $25 million, I think, speaks to that. And so it was interesting, the part that was new was that it was unlikely to pass. I mean, I thought that was being amended and was getting to a better place, but.
Right. And if it, had a chance, I would think that a lot of what is there is going to be removed. And so we will continue to look out for any kind of major amendment that's agreed to, but I would expect it'd have to probably remove a lot of the concern from the fiscal.
Well, that's what I was really asking. So maybe they just get down to
Possible.
a report
Yeah.
or something.
That is possible. And so
Okay.
we'll keep you updated.
And a
on
study commission or study group, right?
Right. Or hopefully the things that we don't have a problem with in the bill.
All right. Okay, well, we just heard a lot. Any thoughts on these bills, where we are? We're coming into a landing on the session. Tracking 64 bills is a lot,
Mhm.
You had a comment?
I'm happy
Ms.
to
Hill?
make a motion
Please do.
for the staff recommendation.
Yeah, please.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion from Ms. Hill, second from Ms. Andriola, to take the position on the last bill you mentioned as,
That is AB 392,
AB
and I think
392.
the motion is essentially to adopt the position stated
Right.
within the, yep, exactly, the board.
okay, very good. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion passes unanimously, and we appreciate all the hard work between you, Leo, and probably others that have helped us through this session. So
Thank you all.
it was slow, and then it all just sort of lands, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, with that, we are going to just go to the general manager's report.
Thank you, Chair Doer. So just regarding Smart About Water, thanks for your comments for the employees' hard work in putting that together. As Paul Anderson usually says, that the TMWA employees make me look good, make my job easy, and he's right, they do. But more importantly, they do good for this community day in and day out. I want to thank Robert, Cammie, and the core team for the Smart About Water event. And then while it takes a team effort to do everything we do at TMWA, I would like to single out one person today, and I'd like to, you've all heard a lot about AMI and the so-called smart meters, so I'd like to invite Marcy Westlake down to just talk about that effort a little bit and the team lead maintaining that effort.
And she's dragging someone with her. I sensed an unwillingness, so.
Marcy Westlake for the record. Amanda Filet here is our supervisor of field metering services, and she is the face behind the AMI project, and she has done an amazing job. We are nearing the end, and it has been a very long road.
Yeah.
So
How long of a road?
We are at 6 years now.
Yeah.
There's been some obstacles. COVID was hard, supply issues and all the things that we've dealt with, but Amanda here has done a great job managing that project.
I never gave up.
With
Right.
a great group behind me, so
Yeah. How big of a group is it?
the entire organization.
Oh, really? Okay. Are out there installing smart meters?
Oh, no.
Okay.
We've got a contracted team of about 12 right now, along with my field staff of 12, but just many
So
individuals.
does that mean 24 altogether?
Yes.
Okay. So 12 internal, 12 external contractors. And you've been changing out these meters from one style to this newer style that you can actually read back at home base? Is that the idea?
Right.
Okay. And what type of system do you use to read back at home base?
So we use what we call the RNI. It's a remote, it's where our MDM, where our reads come in. And so from the 22 towers that we have within this system, it all comes back here, and then we can read those meters there.
And how tall are these towers as compared to like the,
Ooh.
oh,
They vary anywhere from 25 feet to 40-ish
Okay.
feet. And then we've got 3 mountaintops, which, without going onto a map and looking at the exact elevation, they're very tall.
yeah. But I mean, and I was thinking of compared to cell towers, you know.
Yeah, so the ones on the mountaintops are on cell towers as well. They share those, but ours are, the other 19 are on our tanks. So
Interesting.
the level of the tanks plus maybe 15, 20 feet or so.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, amazing project. Look, getting the meters installed in the first place was an amazing project. So to now go back and update those, and how many would you say you have altogether?
Our service territory of 130,000, I think we have just under 8,000 left.
Okay, so, but, I mean, 130,000, but does everyone, like, some are gang metered still, I assume, in some apartment complexes?
Yeah, we still have some flat rate services that may never get
Right,
a radio. But the intention would be that all of them, I think one of our biggest challenges are going to be the casinos, where we have meters in basements and in the middle of them, not easy to access.
Gotcha.
So,
interesting. Questions from the board on this program?
So those of us that might not understand, what does this all mean to the community? Can you just give us a brief description of why? Why are we doing this? What's the result of it?
I think one of the biggest goals for this, or things that we'll see from it, is like from a conservation standpoint, being able to read these meters, detect leaks, by hour, continuous usage, things like that. It's going to really help our community, along with saving truck rolls, not having to visit every site every day, things like that.
Yeah, it
Or
goes
every
to
month.
One word, efficiency. Efficiency of
Efficiency,
staff,
yes.
efficiency of cost.
I mean, you're going to an automated system, so versus having to go out and read the meter or read the meter with electronic equipment, but in close proximity.
Due to the efficiency, it's ultimately you're operating at a lower expense and saving the customer money, as well as environmentally conservative in the sense that we're spending less fuel, we're working more efficiently. Okay, got it. Thank you. Appreciate your help.
And you can detect leaks? I mean, with these?
Yeah, we can. We read down to the gallon, so we have the ability to take that, and the customers can look at their usage every hour.
Wow.
We have a leak alert on the online portal so that you can be advised if you feel you have a leak, and it'll tell you, how many gallons per hour. You can change it. You can do whatever, you feel is good for you.
And we'll be bringing back a customer service update in June to delve more
good.
into that.
Well, we'll miss seeing you out at the curb, but it's all in the interest of, efficiency, getting the job done for sure. And it sounds like getting the job done even better, right? Not just the sheer number, but, some added benefits. Okay, back to you, Mr. Manager. That was it. Okay, well, thank you both for being here. Yeah, I think that is worth something for sure. And be sure to tell us when it's all done, to your satisfaction, okay? Right down to the last few. Yeah, I know. I like seeing you out there. Anyway, we're going to close that item out and move to our final public comment. Is there any? No? Okay, seeing none. Any final board comments, requests for future agenda items? Always an important thing. No? Nothing today? All right, well, with that, I will declare us adjourned. Thank you. Right on schedule. Didn't I say?